Ramanuja joined the school of a famous Vedic scholar, Yadhava Prakasha, for higher studies on Vedas and Shastras and to learn their inner meanings. Ramanuja learnt very fast. About 2 years later, Ramanuja's cousin brother, Govinda, joined the school. The Guru took great liking to Ramanuja because of his brilliance. He considered Ramanuja as his best student. Ramanuja also respected his teacher to a great extent. However, every now and then, serious differences came up between the Guru and Ramanuja on the meanings and explanations provided by the Guru. The Guru's explanations were incomplete, whereas Ramanuja was able to give more appropriate and detailed explanations on the Vedic texts. One day, Yadhava Prakasha was explaining a Vedic verse from Chandogya Upanishad. He interpreted it as the Supreme God, Brahman, has red eyes in an ugly way. Hearing this, Ramanuja, while he was applying oil on Yadhava Prakasha for a head bath, was pained about the abuse of Vedic passage, and tears dropped from his eye and fell upon Yadhava Prakasha. Yadhava Prakasha inquired, and Ramanuja said that beautiful Vedic lines are so awkwardly explained. Ramanuja gave the correct interpretation with proper explanations. The eyes of that Supreme God, Brahman, are as lovely as the lotus blossomed by the rays of the sun. The Guru understood that Ramanuja's interpretation was more appropriate than his own. He was worried and believed that Ramanuja would be a rival and may damage his reputation by his intelligence. Therefore, Yadhava Prakasha decided to drown Ramanuja in the river Ganges by taking him along with other students in the pretext of holy trip to Varanasi to silence him forever. He thought that the incident of drowning could be explained as an unfortunate accident. Also, he thought he could absolve the sin by taking bath in the holy Ganges. The yatra started with Ramanuja and his cousin Govinda taking part. They travelled about 700 miles north to Vindhya mountains. Govinda then came to know about the plan of the Guru and alerted Ramanuja. Ramanuja left immediately without telling anyone. So, for all purposes, Ramanuja was considered as lost in the forest. Guru thought animals would have eaten him and is gone with no sin falling onto the Guru. Ramanuja wandered in the forest without any clue on the way to return. Soon a hunter couple appeared. Upon enquiry, the hunter replied, "We are proceeding to Satyavrata Kshetra, Kanchipuram." Ramanuja asked, "May I accompany you to that holy place?" For which they agreed. After nightfall, all the three took shelter under a tree. The hunter's wife asked for some water to quench her thirst, and the husband promised to get her water at dawn. Ramanuja overheard their conversation, got up early in the morning, went around and came back with water from a nearby well. But to his surprise, they had disappeared. He inquired about the place with a few men passing by. The people gazed at him and said, "Oh, Brahman, can't you see the Gopuram of Lord Varadaraja, presiding deity of Kanchipuram?" Ramanuja was stunned with the reply and wondered how it was possible to cover a distance of 700 miles from Vindhya to Kanchipuram in one night. He realized that the hunter and his wife were none other than the Lord Varadaraja and goddess Perundevi Tayar of Kanchipuram, who brought him to this place safely. From then on, he carried water from the same well called Salai Kinaru to the Lord daily for the temple rituals. Even today, we can see the well at Kanchipuram.
Thanks for the narration. The relevant art depictions have been included in the narration itself. So, I will try to give you more details about the differences between Yadhava Prakasha and Sri Ramanuja in the Vedic interpretation of the Chandogya Upanishad verse. Please listen carefully. The verse 167 of Chandogya Upanishad is as follows. Tasya yatha kapyasam pundarikam evamakshini. This Vedic verse describes the eyes of the Supreme Brahman. For this, Yadava Prakasha gave the following meaning. Kapi is monkey, Pundarikam is lotus, so he related the eyes of the Supreme Brahman to monkey's rear end and the lotus. Thus, he interpreted as follows. The eyes of the Supreme Brahman are even as a lotus flower and red as posterior of a monkey. He said, the Vedic verse is making joke of the eyes. It's because, according to philosophy followed by Yadava Prakasha, the Supreme Being is formless and qualityless, so he cannot accept it as description of the real eyes of the Supreme Being. Whereas Ramanuja understood the Supreme Brahman as manifestation of love and devotion with form and with great qualities, full of bliss and very personal to devotees. So, such a comparison of eyes of the Lord with a wild part of animal was too much for Ramanuja to bear, and hot tears were flowing from his eyes and fell onto Yadava Prakasha's thigh. Yadava inquired, and Ramanuja answered that he was deeply pained to hear the comparison of lotus-like eyes of the Supreme Brahman with the posterior of a monkey. Yadava Prakasha was annoyed and challenged Ramanuja to give a better explanation if he could. Then Ramanuja explained, Kam pibatiti kapihi adityaha. Kam is jalam, water. The one who drinks water is kapi. Kapi is aditya, sun. The verbal root of asa indicates blooming. The word asam therefore means blossomed. The entire kapyasam comes to blossomed by the sun. The full passage would be, the eyes of the Supreme Brahman are as lovely as the lotuses blossomed by the rays of the sun. Yadava Prakasha pretended to admire Ramanuja's skill but said this was indirect interpretation and not a literal one. Actually, there is a natural relationship between sun's rays and the lotus flower blossoming. Hope you understood the unbiased interpretation of Sri Ramanuja. There were many more interpretational differences between them, which made the Guru worried, and you know the rest of the story. Thanks for listening and viewing. We will continue in the next part. Srimathe Ramanujaya Namaha.